Hey, how's it going, guys? Today we're going to talk about my 5 most overrated features for your AR-15. Should be interesting, so stick around. Thanks for checking out the channel, and I do appreciate your support on the channel. If you want to see more content like this, be sure to give me a like and subscribe. And if you're on Rumble, do the Rumble thing and make sure you follow, because we're also over there on Rumble. And I'm also on Getter. Just did that, just having some fun with the Getter thing. You guys should check it out. If you're not on Getter, you can find me at Cyclone42, just Cyclone42. So, okay, so yeah, I thought it would be fun to do a topic about AR-15 features. And this is really targeted really to the new shooter, somebody that's new to the platform, because it can be a little overwhelming, I think, for a lot. And honestly, I think some of the best advice and questions I always get from somebody new to the AR-15 platform that really asks the most basic questions. No offense to my veteran shooters out there, but seriously, I do get good questions from you guys, and I do appreciate that. So I will tell you that I do have about 20 years behind this rifle platform. That does include professional experience with M4, M16, and then my own personal use, where I've done over a dozen builds and about every configuration for the AR-15 that I can think of, and taking these out as far as 600 yards. So I think I got a good amount of experience to kind of talk about this particular topic. So what I will tell all my tactical snowflakes out there, I'm just kidding. There's no reason to get bent out of shape about it. There's likely there's going to be features that I'm going to say aren't that important that you may find important. That's totally cool. Um, it's just a conversation, and you're still welcome to your own opinion. And I would encourage you guys to post down on the bottom what you find to be your 5 top overrated features for AR-15. In order to do this, we got to set up some ground rules for the conversation. So we're going to say, your standard 5.56, 223 platform. Yeah, you want to throw in some 300 blackout. Or something like that. That's fine. That's completely up to you. But just pretty standardized AR-15. We want it to be reliable. It's got to run ammunition, that kind of stuff. But we're going to be able to engage really man-sized silhouettes, let's say out to 300 yards, which is pretty standard. A lot of people, I think, would be happy if they can engage targets a man-sized silhouette, which would just be 18 inches by 40 out to 300 yards. So we'll just kind of put that as our qualifier, and we'll go from there. So, all right, the first one is going to be coatings. Yes, coatings, Cerakotes, anodization, nickel boron, all these things, coatings. There's a lot of really great options out there. However, having said that, your Cerakote really isn't going to make you shoot better. It can certainly make your rifle look cooler. However, it doesn't necessarily give any real function. Um, you can almost argue that it's an unnecessary expense. A lot of rifles, with the exception of maybe a factory coat, Cerakote like this one, are generally going to be a little bit more money. And honestly, the Cerakote isn't really as durable as the anodization that on a standard AR-15, just a black anodized receiver set. So not a lot of value when it comes to coatings. You could argue that if you're going to camouflage or try to reduce the footprint of the rifle, I could understand that, but it's really not necessary if you're just going to take it out to the range or have a home defense gun or your apocalypse rifle or whatever you're doing with it. So cool, I've got one. I've got a few Cerakoted rifles, and I like the Cerakote, but functionality is just not that important. So it's not something that you need to get real too tied up in with any of the coatings for the rifle. Black anodized is fine. Now you do have some coatings for bolt carriers, and you'll see nickel boron and tin coated and different types. Those can add some benefits. Realistically, they're not all that important, and honestly can probably not really justify the additional cost of going to a nickel boron variant. So an example, if you got like an Arrow bolt carrier, I think for the nitride treated bolt carrier, you're looking in that $120 range. To go to a nickel boron, you're looking at about $180, $190. Yeah, it makes it a little easier to clean, but really over the nitride, it's not a huge advantage. So just something to think about. Even a phosphate standard bolt carrier is going to work just fine for you. So I wouldn't get too tied up in general with the coating, especially if you're trying to save a few bucks on your rifle build or your rifle that you're looking to purchase. Okay, next is furniture. Man, this is one that I'll be honest, I get caught up in this. And a buddy of mine, we worked on his rifle and we did some upgrades to it. Took it out and shot it, have some fun. And I gave him some parts and stuff. And we were talking about M-Lock, or I'm sorry, we're talking about Magpul. And he's like, well, he just had a standard, M4 style stock. Well, what does that really give me? And honestly, I really couldn't answer him as far as how does it justify going for spending the extra $60 or what have you to go to something like that. And that's a good point. That sometimes the furniture really can be overplayed a little bit. Yeah, they're nice. There's some cool features when you can get QD points and maybe some locking mechanism, but really it doesn't really change the basic premise of what we're trying to do and be able to gauge those targets out to 300 yards. If this is all standard A2 grip, M4 stock, you're still going to be able to make those hits and you're really just not going to gain that much, but they are nice. The touch and feel, the touch points are awesome. The look, personalizing your rifle, there's nothing wrong with that, but I wouldn't get bent out of shape about your rifle if you don't have those parts or accessories. To put that in perspective, Marines and soldiers have been shooting rifles with M4 stocks and A2 grips and have done a lot of really amazing stuff with that. So if they can do it, we can do that, no problem whatsoever. So yeah, the furniture, not that big a deal, especially if you get out. We get out past the what I would consider to be the receiver when we get into foregrips. I did a video, it's like last year or whatever, and I talked about a really nice budget-friendly detachable foregrip, and some guys get really mad because they're like, I'm not putting that cheap airsoft stuff on there. And I just kind of chuckle because it's really not that important. The rifle will still shoot if that thing fell off or whatever. You want to spend $100 on a foregrip, by all means, do what you got to do, but it's really not that important. All right, for the next one, now this is we're going to get more into functionality, okay? And I busted out the Ballistic Advantage build, which I am in the middle of testing this. I got another range session I got to do. But anyway, we're going to talk about muzzle devices. Man, muzzle devices. There are so many different types of muzzle devices. You got brakes, you got comps, you got flash hiders, you got A2, you got all these different kind of muzzle devices. And it can be pretty overwhelming for a new shooter or somebody new to this platform. This is one area that I would say if you're trying to cut some cost, you just simply go to just a standard A2 muzzle device. That's it. Brakes can be expensive. This one here is a two-chamber brake. Hopefully you can see that on my Aero build. This one's also reviewed as well. And the thing with the brakes is that you get additional flash and some percussive blast that goes along with that. Yeah, it can make it a little flatter, shoot a little faster, but it's not that big of a deal to maybe even justify the cost. And really, a lot of people won't even look at stuff like this. They just simply run the standard A2 configuration. So that VG6 is like $50 or $60 brake. This A2 works really well for compensation, and muzzle flash is like $6 or $7, at least under $10. And they work just fine. These have been used in the military for the last 30 plus years, and for the most part, they're still using them unless they're using unless they've got a muzzle device that's set up for like a suppressor or something like that. So, yeah, got to be careful with the devices. Certainly not anything wrong with going out and getting a brake, a real high-speed flash suppressor. You'll get some additional benefits, but it's not much, and it's one area that you can really save some dough and not get too bent over backwards about it if you just have a standard A2 flash hider. Okay, now we're going to start getting people probably pretty riled up, but I'm just going to say it. Number two, free floated barrel. The idea behind the free float system is the barrel is allowed to vibrate freely and not interfere with anything around it. So it just makes it a little bit more accurate. How much more accurate is really going to depend on a lot of different variables, to include the type of ammunition you shoot. Nothing cracks me up more than somebody that spends a lot of money on a rifle. They get a big optic, they want the whole deal, and they go out and they buy the cheapest ammo possible, and they wonder why it doesn't shoot very good. Um, the free floating is nice, but it's a very nominal uh, accuracy difference. And the reason why I make this point is if you look at a lot of competition shooters that shoot military style rifles, they do it with M16 style setups that are not free floated. Of course, they got them, some of them are set up pretty nicely, but you know, even the Marine Corps prides himself around marksmanship, has made a legend out of the M16A4 and the M16A2, which is a non-free floated rifle that they shoot out to 500 yards. It's if you don't have a free floated rifle, or you're looking at a rifle that's not free floated, I really wouldn't get too concerned about it, especially when we talk about what we consider to be our target qualifier out to 300 yards. You know, if you went into the Army, you're going to have to shoot, you know, targets out to 300 meters, a little bit longer than 300 yards, but it's that Ivan shape of about 18 by 40. And you'll be able to make those hits with just a carbine length AR-15 with like a quad rail, or even just a plastic forend on it. So you're still going to be able to make those shots. That rifle is still, with decent ammo, is still going to be under 2-minute capable rifle. So at 300 yards, you're looking at best, you know, a 6-inch pattern. So I tell you that you don't just walk away from it. I mean, you're going to get a little bit more real estate. That's where a lot of people kind of like that. It just gives us some real estate to attach some more accessories, or place the rifle up against barricades and things like that. If you're into that kind of thing, a lot of people aren't. So it's just not something to get too worked up about if you've got your eye on a standard A2 style front sight post AR-15, or if that's what you have. That rifle will do every bit of what we discussed if you just do your part. The other part too is that sometimes, depending on how your rifle's set up, you might be giving up some reliability by going to a free float system. And that mostly has to do with the gas block. And sometimes these gas blocks can come loose, especially if you're doing your own build, you don't get the timing of the gas block correctly, then it's not gonna cycle. And that could be problematic in a life or death situation. So if you just go with a standard A2 front sight post, you're not going to have that problem. Reliability is going to be really great. The sight is affixed to the barrel, so that's going to aid in accuracy. And if you're using iron sights, so yeah, they're really great. And you can also get free floated barrels that still include that front sight post if you kind of want to mix genres. But I think like the Daniel Defense has got one that does that. But I really wouldn't worry too much about that, about the free floating your rifle, unless you just really want to do it. But you're going to get some accuracy improvement. If I put a number on it, I would probably say maybe a quarter MOA. Maybe you're doing really good to get an extra half-inch by going to a free floated system versus just a standard A2 or carbine length rifle setup. So there you go. All right, so this one's probably going to be the one that's going to get some of you guys upset. And that's okay. It's not a big deal. It's not really a feature, but it kind of is. We treat it like that, and that's simply going to be cost. There's a lot of really good AR-15s out there, and the price ranges go from as low as $350 all the way up to $2,000 or more. This is a Daniel Defense Mark 12, and yeah, this one's in that $2,000 range. But cost can be a real sticking point for a lot of people, and I think it's one that I think is the most important. Don't get bent around the axle about how much your rifle costs. Look at some features. Make sure you get what you want. If it's not what you want, if you want to spend the $2,000, you want to spend $1,500 on that rifle, then that's the one you probably should get. If you don't really want to spend that much, you're just taking it out to the range or using it for coyote hunting or whatever you're doing, maybe a little bit of home defense, you don't see a lot of heavy use, there's no reason to spend $2,000 on your setup. You can find a lot of really good rifles under that $1,000 mark. I would recommend, if you're trying to save a few bucks, is go check out Palmetto State Armory. They don't give me anything. I have no relationship with Palmetto other than I like their products and they're priced really well, and they do a good job. You can go on YouTube and check out a ton of videos of people testing those rifles, and they're going to do a really good job for you. Um, there's Anderson and Bear Creek Arsenal, and there's just a lot of offerings under that $1,000. You could probably find a really good rifle right now that's going to check off everything on your list in that $700 to $800 range. And I think if you get in there, you're probably going to be pretty happy with what you get. So don't sweat the high-end stuff, especially if you're new. Um, think about what your needs are, and then you can kind of go from there. It certainly doesn't hurt to have stuff like this, but it's not as necessary as sometimes they're made out to be. So also let me know if you guys have any other topics like this that you want to talk about. Maybe it ends up on a video. So I appreciate you guys, and you have a wonderful day.